I'm hungry.
All right, fair enough. Well, how about I make us some omelets?
That sounds pretty good, actually.
I'm gonna put my foot in it.
Oh, come on. Y'all asked for something different, and I think this constitutes something different. But I also get countless requests for this in regular show, and I know Adventure Time is a bit better. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Adventure Time. It's Adventure Time!
It's adventure time!
Or more specifically, the Ice King, or Simon.
What, man?
Simon.
What, man?
Okay, you know what? We'll get there, Ice King. But since this is my first time doing Adventure Time, I should give a little background. Adventure Time is a cartoon that's probably one of the most influential shows of all time. Many of your favorite cartoons like SU, Rowdy Falls, heck, I'd even go as far as to say the Helliverse, are inspired or descended from such. Especially the crazy spaghetti animation, the slang humor, stuff like that. The world building, the shipping, it all started here. Adventure Time takes place in the futuristic, zany world of Ooh, where stuff happens. That pretty much describes the show, stuff happens. Our focus is on Finn the human and his adopted brother Jake. Jake is a dog. The two save Ooh and the neighboring Candy Kingdom from various threats, their main one being the Ice King. Ice King's main gimmick, besides ruling over a bunch of penguins, one of them being actually an evil alien named Gunther, or Orbalog, it's been a while since I saw the show, is besides wearing a magic crown that grants him Elsa powers, he tends to abduct princesses to become his wives.
Well, why'd you capture 6 of them if you just want to marry one?
I'm collecting them all first to be sure I make the right choice. Marriage is a serious thing.
He basically likes to pull a leprechaun too, see? Princesses who don't like him in any meaningful way because he's old and loony and what the hell are you doing now, dude? But outside of the pilot, he first appears in the episode Prisoners of Love.
Aww, Ice King's here.
You know why I'm here? Do you know what Ice King means?
So this means they have history together. I have questions. I'm surprised Ice King doesn't remember Finn and Jake. He isn't too keen with the pair being in his kingdom. I mean, they are trespassing.
I don't care! This is my kingdom. You guys can't just scoot about on my land willy-nilly. I've got rules here.
I'm sure if they asked permission, he'd still be like, hell no. It's the thought that counts, though. Hey, that rhymes. But this episode establishes him pretty well. While he does want princesses to love him, well, first off, he makes a bunch of fatal mistakes. Most importantly, he always chooses the super young ones. Not that you can't have a relationship between two consenting people with an age gap, it's just a bit harder in my experience. But it's clear this whole arrangement isn't consensual.
They don't want to be here.
Of course they do. I would have killed them already if they didn't want to be here. Right, ladies?
Plus, he has a harem of princesses, and he keeps them locked in a cage. I mean, I get the logic, but no, dude. No, that's gross. This is not The Bachelor. But honestly, outside of like that one episode where PB's like, oh, I'm not gonna date you unless I'm the last 2 people in the world or something, this is really the only episode to establish Ice King as a true, genuine friend. Most episodes just treat him as an annoying nuisance, like that one neighbor who refuses to move away because unfortunately, they have a right to the neighborhood too. You ever been in a storm of fists and snow pummeling down on you? So hard your heart's gonna stop. You ever been in a storm like that, Wally? But Finn and Jake are able to rescue the princesses, and Ice King has a vision after he gets knocked out.
I try so hard to be a good husband for girls. What's wrong with me?
You're a sociopath.
Okay, something I should point out, oh my god, that rhymed, which will be very important for the rest of this video, is that Adventure Time is kinda like Venture Brothers, where the crew admits nothing is truly planned out. They just make up everything as they go along and hope it eventually connects. Like the whole reveal that Ooh takes place after the apocalypse was just them trying to cover their asses for why the frozen businessmen, like, that episode happened. But something the later episodes reveal is this should not be a one-off vision. It should stay with with the Ice King. Whenever the Cosmic Owl visits you, it's for a purpose, and it's usually a premonition. So beyond telling the Ice King the obvious, what's the purpose of this dream? That he's going to lose his way? That he needs to get out of his way if he wants people to love him? Especially considering how the later seasons have the pair become friends with him when he lets himself be vulnerable. I guess you could choke it up to early installment weirdness, but yeah, it's just kinda weird. And speaking of early installment weirdness, this is one of the few episodes where he doesn't go after Princess Bubblegum. When most other episodes, she's usually his main target.
The hour is yours, but the day shall be mine. Just like you, Princess. Mine!
What a patoot.
Anyhow, yeah, at the beginning of the show, Ice King was just a normal villain of the week, or at best, somebody who liked to cause problems. Like how Ricardo the Heart Guy turned out to actually be his heart, and tried to, well, have the Ice King's subconscious desires, but through heart terms.
Now I'm going to cut out Princess Bubblegum's heart and make out with it.
Ew. Or how he can be pretty dark when he wants to be. Like how it turns out he did find a woman who wants to marry him for him, Old Lady Princess.
Hi, honey.
Hey, cool guy.
She fell in love with me the moment I slipped on her engagement ring.
Bye-bye.
At least they're presumably the same age. But at the ceremony, it turns out he brainwashed her, and she really hates him.
I'll remove this ring and save your life.
No! She's my love boat.
No, man. You cursed her. She hates you.
Okay, that's your opinion.
And he doesn't care he basically took away her consent because then he'll finally be married.
Then why did you make us go through all that junk about why marriage is worth stuff?
Uncomplicated and spontaneous.
However, as time went on, we discovered that the Ice King was actually a pretty lonely dude, which obviously doesn't excuse or justify what he does, but in a way, you kind of feel bad for him. You can argue he genuinely wants a princess for the companionship, not for any power or to beget offspring on her. He just has a really bad way of going about it, and it does put a new perspective on his character. One of my favorite episodes still reveals that he does want to be friends with Finn and Jake. He just doesn't really know how. I mean, maybe try finding a therapist first? And yeah, it sucks he goes to insane lengths, and he is kind of a stalker about it.
You don't love me. I know a lot about you guys. Sometimes you don't cry because you're afraid of real emotion. It's okay. Let it out.
But by his standards, he means well. Again, he just needs to go about it a different way. Heck, Finn and Jake even tell him the basics of friendship. First off, you can't really force it, i.e. turning them into stiffs so they'll be forced to be with him. People need to have the choice to be friends with you because consent is a two-way street. And friends don't eat each other.
Ah! Oh! Ah! Oh!
Friends don't eat each other, Ice King. That's not how friends work.
I thought that would be a given, but okay. Heck, the Old Lady Princess fiasco had Finn and Jake be perfectly cordial with him when he said he wanted to stop capturing princesses, and that as far as they knew, he was going to be happy with Old Lady Princess after they got married.
But I'll never have my last hurrah before buckling down with that battle axe. It'll drive me back to a life of stealing hot princesses. Is that what you want?
Granted, he did have to strong-arm them into throwing him a man-Lorette party, which if I ever get married, which I probably never will, I want to have that. But they made it clear that they wouldn't put up with his BS. Whenever he did something stupid, they'd slap him no, you don't do that. I think it's also pretty nice that when Ice King had cold feet, pun not intended, and he was conflicted about whether or not to continue kidnapping princesses, well, they gave him an honest speech about the benefits of marriage.
Marriage is a thing that allows me to capture a princess forever and let her live inside of me. Marriage is the most beautiful thing in the world.
Oh my god, Ice King, you're such a cannibal. No, you can't eat people. Wait, is that why he thought that when you made your friends omelets that you put your feet in them?
Eating a part of me will bring us closer together. I'll be inside of you.
Unfortunately, it turns out that in this case, yeah, again, he really did hypnotize Old Lady Princess, so it doesn't count. And when the spell is broken, he still goes along with it. It's actually kind of gross.
I hate you!
Here she comes. Yes, touch my beard, dearie. Yes, that's right. Almost there.
Yeah, Ice King is kind of a creep when you get a little older. Like, really, the best thing you could say about him is that he's a creep, a weirdo, and what the hell is he doing here? He don't belong here. He once tried to kidnap Dr. Princess because she was polite to him while she was treating Gunther.
Without Gunter, I'll be all alone. You see, I'm a widower.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did your wife die?
Even if, like, no offense, dude, that's her whole job, like, treating patients who are brought to her and being polite to them. And as she points out, she's not even a princess. It's just a surname.
Gunter, you're embarrassing me!
But he does have his limits. He only really goes after princesses that are of age, except for Lumpy Space Princess, but again, I could just chop that up to her early installment weirdness. When Bubblegum turned 13, he ran out of there even though she was his main target.
She's 13 years old now.
Oh, dang it! Well, I'm out of here. Goodbye, everyone.
And maybe it's because I haven't watched the show in a while. I only really watched the Ice King episodes to prepare for this review, but I don't ever recall him going after Flame Princess. Maybe it's because she's like fire, so it'll hurt him, but again, she's also really young. But I'll say the tragedy is, if he finds a woman who wants him, he'll be an ideal husband. Like, that's what makes it so tragic. If he wasn't a creep, he'd be perfect. Princess Monster Wife had him steal various parts of various princesses and create the titular Princess Monster Wife. Wow, that's a mouthful. And I gotta say, he actually treats her pretty tenderly and gently. Like, if she weren't a bunch of stolen parts, I would ship it. Especially when Princess Monster Wife starts to have an identity crisis.
We're like two normal jelly beans sitting at the bottom of the jar, floating in a sea of olives, waiting for somebody to guess how many jelly beans are in the jar, which I mentioned.
Oh, that's sweet, I guess, even if it made me laugh. Oh, come on, I'm a critic, I'm supposed to be honest. But he does try his hardest to make her feel comfortable and normal, which she doesn't feel, but hey, with me, it's the thought that counts for most characters. He was willing to put on a fashion show for her and physically injure his penguins if they didn't clap for her and made her feel awesome.
Arrange the chairs, please. You're all gonna clap and cheer, or I'm gonna smack your buns.
But things get worse for her when she learns that she's just a bunch of stolen parts, meaning she's making people miserable by existing, and really she shouldn't exist in the first place. But in the end, Princess Monster Wife makes the ultimate sacrifice, and Ice King takes things pretty well.
She gave away all my stuff!
But yeah, I guess y'all are here for the meat of this. I've stalled long enough. We're here to talk about the sad, tragic reason people love the Ice King. His crybaby backstory. The Ice King, in many ways, is kind of like a proto-version of Kinger from the Amazing Digital Circus, who I do eventually want to get to. It's just that, one, the show has a really inconsistent airing style, like it's way worse than Hell of a Boss, and two, well, I just want to watch the newest episode first to see if there's anything I missed. But yeah, the point is, at first, he starts off as a normal character, a normal jokey character you're supposed to laugh at, and then it turns out they have a super deep, lore-rich backstory, which explains a lot and makes you feel bad for them. And kinda like Kinger, he's a quote-unquote weirdo, which makes it worse because there's a method to the madness, I guess you could say. In truth, the Ice King isn't really the Ice King, as in, he wasn't always the Ice King. He was once a normal human man named Simon Petrikov.
What, man?
No, I feel like this is a good twist since the Ice King is somebody you can very well imprint on. Even in the theme song, if you stop and pause, you could see the Ice King is like sad and in pain when he's doing his magic, like he's sad on the inside, like look at me. I think what makes it better is this wasn't planned, and neither is the later addition to him having a connection to Marceline. One festive holiday season, Finn and Jake are digging around some trash when they find a case of VHS tapes, which belong to the Ice King. Kitty, what's a VHS? Oh my god, I'm frickin' old. They were these things they had before DVDs and streaming. What are DVDs? Look, I was raised on VHSs. I once had a whole Build-A-Bear box full of them. Like, I had 24 VeggieTale VHSs, and they were all green because VeggieTales. And I had one of those mini TVs with a built-in VHS thing. God, I'm old. You kids don't know what you're missing. Finn explains to Jake and the audience that he found the briefcase previously before. He was going around and he saw the Ice King trying to bury his secrets. Ooh, secrets. I like secrets. But they're the Ice King's secrets, meaning it's a special celebration that of course means they have to have a secret screening for, with flyers and everything to advertise it, because that is totally secret. The tapes at first aren't anything special, just the Ice King's diary, which is more so a bunch of stream of consciousness ramblings, which is in character.
Princess, what is your name?
Please, let me go home.
So, Princess, please let me go home. Tell me.
Strangely, the Ice King finds out about the screening, and of course, he's not happy about it. I mean, would you be? That's like a major invasion of privacy.
Give me my tapes back.
No, man. I know you've got evil secrets on these, and we're gonna find them.
Finn gets angry that the Ice King is watching because how dare he be offended, and to help break into Finn and Jake's house, he creates an army of snowmen. Because Ice King doesn't conscript women unless it's into his bed. Wow, that came out wrong. Ice King breaks in via the chimney like Santa Grinch, and it seems like he's subconsciously remembering a bunch of stuff from before Ooh.
You're so unique. I'll name you Red Nose and make you leader of the pack. Well, now you look boring.
Ice King, you evil man, you really are the Grinch. While Ice King was snooping, Finn and Jake were watching the tapes. Hey, that rhymes. And there's only one left. But the Ice King is too late. And the tape is played. It involves the story of Simon Petrikov, and it's a video diary of him and his misdescent into madness. And presumably the 2000s, I'm guessing the year this episode premiered, so like the 2010s, Simon was a human researcher who studied the supernatural and the superstitions. One day he bought the crown during his travels in Scandinavia, and he put it on as a joke to make his fiancée, Betty, laugh.
Saw my fiancé in front of me, looking at me with such contempt. What had I done when I wore this crown? All I know is I never saw Betty again.
Now, I want to examine some stuff. First off, I didn't notice until now that Simon's eyes are different. As in the picture of him and Betty, we see that he has these black beady eyes, but in the video, he has blue eyes, kind of like the eyes he would eventually have as the Ice King. Because this is after he put on the crown, which makes you wonder if he only wore it that one time like he claimed, or if just wearing the crown once permanently alters you. We also see that Simon has a scientific parasite in his pocket, which is known to feed off the brainwaves of the intelligent. A lot of smart characters have them, including Dr. Princess and Princess Bubblegum, highlighting that at one point he was a genius only for the crown to sap him of more and more of his sanity, but not his intellect, since I feel like the two are separate concepts. Or you can argue that perhaps a tiny bit of Simon still remained, clinging on for as long as it possibly could, because the only time you see Simon without it during the last scene is where he's basically become the Ice King in all but name. And the sad part is that Simon was living during a time called the Great Mushroom War, which is something I feel like the show hasn't really delved into, just the aftermath of, not complaining, totally, aka a nuclear war that caused the apocalypse that would eventually become Ooh. And the only reason the Ice King survived was because of the crown protecting him. Basically, it gave him the power of eternal life, but it came at a massive cost. And the thing is, even if he wasn't wearing the crown, he was still affected by it, since he would get visions or hear things. Or, you know, it permanently altered his appearance for the worst.
As you can see, my skin is beginning to turn blue. My body temperature has been lowering at a supernatural rate to what is now about 30 degrees Celsius.
The whole thing is also sad, really. Like, I don't know a better term for it besides sad. But why is it good? Well, for one, it's applicable to many real-world situations. I think a reason shows like Adventure Time or Steven Universe were able to thrive during their times was because at their core, they dealt with relatable topics via supernatural plot lines. Like, for God's sake, Future was basically Steven realizing he had PTSD from a traumatic childhood and he was the victim of parentification. Heck, Hell of a Boss basically deals with the child of a divorce and a gay man realizing he wasn't allowed to be with the one he loves. With Simon, many people liken him to a parent or older figure with a mental illness, or as is the case with Marceline, somebody with, say, dementia or Alzheimer's, where he's still Simon but he can't remember, so in a way you can't really fault him, but you do have to stop him. Heck, one of my viewers even said they saw Simon as somebody with dissociative identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality disorder, especially since the Ice King and Simon are two different people, so to speak. But for me, I feel like you can basically imprint on him whatever you want. For instance, what about a parent struggling with, say, alcoholism or drug addiction? A reason many people, quote unquote, and I mean it's in the best way possible, stay addicts is because they develop a physical dependency to the thing they're addicted to. As in, if you just cut it out cold turkey, you can easily go into shock or die or have a stroke just because your body needs it that much, even if it's literally killing you. BTW, if you or someone you love is addicted and they want to quit but they don't know how, please find a program that allows you to taper off rather than go cold turkey, because withdrawal sucks, but it will be worth it in the end. For you and the people you care about. But the point is, Simon in many ways needs the crown to survive, even if he's giving up parts of himself to it. Or you can argue, hey, it's mental illness or conditions besides dementia. Like argument's sake, the first thing that comes to mind for me is schizophrenia. And I'm just speaking in generalities here. Especially his whole line of,
I now see the visions always, whether or not I wear the crown. They tell me the secrets of the ice and snow, that the power of the crown will save me with its frost.
With schizophrenia, one of the most common symptoms is paranoia, as in it's not just seeing colorful characters, it's thinking that the people around you are conspiring to kill you, but only the voices in your head can help you, even if, say, that's totally not what's happening. I guess more people use Alzheimer's or dementia because it ties back better, and there's the whole Marceline idea, like no matter what they do, he just won't remember, but I'm the type where if it's applicable to you, and you can back it up with evidence, or if, say, it helps you or helps you come to terms with you, well, your interpretation can be equally valid. But this whole dark chapter aside, another reason many people enjoy this is because, well, it ties back nicely to the Ice King as a whole in a way that makes sense. Because much of what the Ice King does, well, you can argue it's subconsciously based on Simon's life. Like, why capture so many princesses? Because his pet name for his fiancée, Betty, aka the one that got away because she was the first thing the crown took away from him, was my princess.
And then maybe, Betty, my princess, maybe you will love me again. Please love me again, Betty!
So he captures those girls subconsciously, hoping they'll be Betty. Heck, look at Dr. Princess and then look at Betty and you'll see what I mean. Like, the crew had to actually come out and say that Betty and Dr. Princess were not the same person. Bubblegum, while a bit younger, is kinda like Betty, an intellectual young woman who tends to like science and the supernatural. And I'd argue their facial resemblance is kinda the same. Plus, I mean, in the flashback we also see him with the wad of gum that would eventually become bubblegum. Maybe again it's like subconsciously or something like that. And it explains why he tends to go after the younger princesses, as Betty was implied to be a tad younger than Simon, or just looked way younger than she was. I guess it also explains his age and why he's so friendless. He's existed for 1,000 years, he's probably the oldest person in the main cast outside of perhaps BMO, but despite telling people I'm sorry well in advance, perhaps either they couldn't take it anymore and left themselves, or he pushed them away to avoid hurting them. Either option really is terrible.
Now you know my secret. You know that I used to wear glasses.
I wear glasses, actually old lady glasses. What are you getting at? Still, Finn realizes it was wrong to steal the Ice King's tapes, since they were his and he hid them for a reason. But he and Jake do develop, per the episode, a fleeting moment of empathy for the Ice King and the man he once was. So they give him his tapes back, which because of the crown's influence, he's already forgotten about. He just thinks they're a present, and he gives them presents in return. Aww.
Exciting! Videotapes! I had a bunch of these once, but I threw them away. This is great, Fern.
They decide that once a year they will have a ceasefire of sorts and invite their friends over, along with the Ice King, to have cocoa and just relax. All of their friends, who I think are cool with the Ice King, which is really cool. Speaking of, I do like how after this point, Finn is a bit more sympathetic towards the Ice King. Like, he obviously will still kick his ass when he does something out of line, but he knows at the end of the day, he's just a poor old man and he treats him as such. So long as he isn't abducting princesses, he's pretty nice to him. By the later episodes, he even calls him Simon, when the only other person who calls him that is typically Marcy.
And that you ask, and
Come on, Simon, it's over. It's gonna be okay, man. Nope, this way. Come on, let's get you some ice cream.
Oh yeah, I guess we finally got to Marcy. Not gonna lie, I kinda like the name Marceline. Marceline is the town Walt Disney is from. So, Simon's relationship with Marcy is probably the second best part of his character, and with Marceline, outside of their take on her being a vampire, like drinking the color red rather than blood, it's the most notable part about her backstory. But why did it happen? Well, in Holly Jolly Secrets, Marceline appears outside the window when Finn and Jake invite their friends over. You might be thinking, in hindsight, she's shocked she's finally getting to spend Christmas time with Simon, or hey, maybe she felt like she couldn't confront him. But remember how I said that nothing in the show is planned out? Well, neither was Simon and Marcy. The crew just wanted to have an excuse for why Marcy was outside the window in universe, hence the episode I Remember You, which has many meanings. The only reason they included that was as a joke to Marceline's first appearance in Evicted. One day, Ice King is cosplaying as Marceline, which he also did in Holly Jolly Secrets during the tapes. Oddly enough, the song he sings is the Fry song, and he's kinda rocking it. Which I know you can argue it's just him singing Marcy's best song. I mean, imagine cosplaying Eminem and singing anything besides Lose Yourself, but the song itself is kinda significant. It's a song about Marcy's father eating her fries, which, yeah, it sounds silly, but Marcy also spent a lot of time with her dad during the end of the world where there was little food or likely anything edible or delicious. Cold McDonald's fries were probably like gold to her. And while Marceline is half demon, well, her father is a full-blooded demon who rules over literal hell, meaning he could probably survive not eating for a few hours. To Marceline, it's a very selfish act. Oh, and the fry incident happened after Simon left her in Hunson's care, BTW, after Simon basically went into his final throes of madness, and yeah, Hunson might have been her father, but Simon was her daddy. Look, I don't make the rules, I'm sorry if it sounds disgusting, but Yondu was the one who said it, so go blame him. The thing is, yeah, I'm probably looking too deeply into it, but that's how I choose to interpret things. The Ice King turns out to be a big fan of Marceline, and his dream is to write a song with her, for the action. As in, so he can score with princesses, which I don't think would work since Marceline is a queen, but okay, whatever rocks your boat.
ladies are drawn to bros with tortured pasts. And I've got a way tortured past. I think. I don't really.
Crap, he doesn't know how right he is. But you might be wondering why he wants Marcy now, or why he suddenly likes Marcy. Well, as is a running theme with Simon and the Ice King, I think Simon is subconsciously still poking through. Ice King just knows that he likes Marcy for some reason, which oddly I don't think he ever tries to steal her to be like his wife or something, so that's pretty cool. Maybe it's because she's not a princess, but because he just remembers how they used to have this weird familial bond. He even says,
A lot of emotionally powerful stuff in here. I'm still wet with tears.
tears implies fresh. Perhaps the Ice King was looking over Simon's scrapbook and he cried because subconsciously he was remembering what he lost, but he didn't realize it. All he remembered was Marcy, hence the cosplay at the beginning. Again, probably looking too deeply into it, but hey, I just like patterns. The Ice King takes the pages for inspiration and goes to find Marcy at her house.
Oh, anybody home?
No.
Guessing by my commentary, I'm sure you know by now that Marcy and the Ice King have history, and it's not pretty. It turns out the Ice King and Marcy have a pattern where the Ice King will want to be with Marcy for some reason and then track her down, presumably just to hang out or catch up or to meet his idol, and Marcy will always try to jog his memory to no avail, and it gets too painful to deal with, so she just moves on to another house. And he finds her again, and the cycle repeats. I've heard some people say that's why Evicted happened. seemed like Ice King went to Marcy for some reason, and she tried to get away from him by going to Finn and Jake's house. I mean, I kinda get it though, but part of me just once again chalks this up to early installment weirdness. There was that little mini storyline of sorts where Finn learned that Marcy was at her core a pretty nice girl who just happened to like pranks. And once they finally made that connection, that part of Marcy went away and she basically became Finn's big sister. Of course, Marcy won't let Ice King pick up on chicks, especially her ex-girlfriend, even if he's willing to hash out some sort of deal.
A prog rock duo. I'll even split the fans with you. I get the princesses and you get whatever it is you're into. Sounds good. Yeah, I think it does.
So princesses, or a princess, or you know what, it wouldn't work. To Marcy, it's basically bordering on incest, and Bonnie doesn't really seem like the type of person to be poly.
This happens when you fly with it. The tangles are hard. Oh, jeez, no. Oh, no.
Ice King, the trick is to start from the end and work your way up, as in like the end of one of the cables. Finn and Jake arrive on the scene to come and retrieve the Ice King, but Marcy lets him stay. What?
No, it's okay. You guys can go.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see you then.
Okay then, time for the feels. And don't worry, Finn and Jake are on standby. Marcy helps the Ice King write a song, and he has one prepared. About Princess Bubblegum. Wow, he really does not know her complicated backstory, because it's totally awesome sauce to hear your daddy substitute speak at length about his weirdo crush on the girl you used to date. Just saying, it seems like a Lifetime special. By the end of the song, the Ice King has a mental meltdown, ice pun not intended. As it turns out, surprise, surprise, he is super lonely. He just doesn't know how to have a friend that's female who he doesn't want to crush on. Plus, he's a selfish sociopath. He keeps destroying Marcy's house, and he won't stop, and he even pushes Marcy down.
Stop acting crazy!
I just want to be loved! Uh-oh. I'm sorry I pushed you.
Oh, my heart. Well, at least he apologizes. That is something. Now, you kind of have to wonder what Marcy thinks of him. Well, it's a combo of pity, since she knows he used to be a good man, and for one reason or another, he won't accept her help, and she regrets that he can't do more for him, as she does love him. In a platonic way, of course. He even offers her a hug, and probably for the first time ever, Marcy returns it. The Ice King doesn't know what to do, so he does the only thing he knows how. Kiss her. Ew!
Ah. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Oh, not like that!
Alright, let's examine this. Kitty, why are we doing that? It's disgusting. Yes, Catherine, now imagine it from Marcy's perspective. Your father figure trying to kiss you. Gross, he's Tom Brady. But why do this? Is it because he's lost his mind? Well, I think this relates back to the whole idea of subconscious. As we saw in flashback, Simon was always super affectionate with Marcy, and part of that meant kissing her, especially to calm her down when she was scared.
Don't worry, I can control it better now. It's okay. BRB.
Which, to be fair, it's not weird if a parent or guardian kisses you on, say, the cheek or the forehead. Simon probably would have done it to present-day Marcy, like, look, Marcy, I'm fine, kiss, kiss. But because he's not really Simon anymore, all the Ice King knows is likely the word kiss. So to him, that means kiss on the lips. Marcy gets to the meat of why she always ignores him and runs away. Because, as far as she knows, and as is basically true this whole video, he doesn't remember his past life as Simon.
Don't remember anything, do you, Simon?
What, Mom?
Why do you even come see me when you don't remember me? You don't even know who you are.
Which, yes, this does tie back into the whole dementia or Alzheimer's interpretation. It's a really tough pill to swallow, but unfortunately, the person you might know is probably long gone. But a tiny piece of them will always remain, I feel. But unfortunately, jogging their memory doesn't always work because there's little memory left. In fact, if you guys know any tips on how to deal with a dementia patient, please post them down below. I do know one thing they do is to give some of the patients realistic baby dolls. Think like the one Beatrice had in BoJack, since apparently they never lose the ability to love. Oh my god, that would have been a great episode, but I guess he already has Gunther. Marcy tries to show the Ice King memories of his past, from newspaper clippings to pictures he took of Marcy when she was a child, but nothing works.
This was you, Simon, before the war.
Huh?
Then on the back of the picture, she finds something. His final goodbye to Marcy, which I think was written as a song on purpose since we know from flashbacks the two did like to bond by singing together.
Hey, Marcy, I wrote a song for you. Yeah!
Your songs are so good.
Maybe he was trying to express his love to her the only way he knew how. He did care about her, he really did, but he had to make it clear that one day he would completely lose himself to the crown and its magic. And if he did anything to hurt her when he finally lost his memory, he's very truly sorry. The Ice King doesn't know it's really a song he wrote to comfort Marcy, he just thinks it's a normal song, one that sounds really good. But for once in presumably centuries, he and Marcy share a tender moment together, just without him realizing it. Marcy realizing it's hopeless and this is the best they're ever going to get. And they finally have an outlet to express their grief, or I guess at least Marcy does. And honestly, whenever I listen to this song, it really makes me cry, or at least significantly tear up every time. Finn and Jake don't know what it means, and it doesn't matter. All that matters is it makes Marcy finally remember their bond and the day they met. As a child, Marcy was left behind by her mother during the aftermath of the Great Mushroom War, and when she was crying and cold and scared, she was found by Simon, who rescued her and gave her Hambo, her beloved stuffed animal. Oh yeah, one more thing. So throughout the show, Marcy has her own stuffed animal child named Hambo, who is quite adorable. And in one episode, her jerk boyfriend sells Hambo without her consent for something magic related, and this gets her to break up with him.
That's the last straw, Ash. That's it. You're a psycho jerk and you ruined my life.
But not all of it.
It's over, you psycho!
Now obviously, in any other circumstance, she does have a right to be mad because, hey, that's a part of her, but the significance of such an item comes into play here. Not only is it a valuable memento from her childhood, it's also the only thing she has left of Simon, as far as she knows. And Hambo made her feel loved when she needed it the most. We also get some more Simon and Marcy storyline in the episode, Simon and Marcy. Clever. Fun fact, this is the last Adventure Time episode Rebecca Sugar worked on before she went to go create SU. Prior to this episode, she was working on both shows, but it got to be too much for her and she had to pick and choose. And I have to say, she really went out in a bang in a very roundabout way. Especially since the first Adventure Time episode she wrote was It Came from the Nightosphere, which was a Marceline episode about her bond with her father. Ice King, Marcy, Finn, and Jake are playing basketball, and they're actually having fun. It's pretty cool to see. I also like how the Ice King and Marcy are on a team together. Obviously, it's because Finn and Jake are on one team themselves, but hey, it's pretty cool to point out. Sorry if it's my job to notice and analyze minor things.
Alright, good game. Good game. Take 5. I'll get us all a bunch of little waters.
Oh, I could go over some. Finn wants to know why the Ice King was invited, and Marcy says it's because she loves him. In a platonic way, of course, but only on her own. Finn and Jake are missing context, so Marcy tells them the story of her youth, and how the Ice King, back when he was Simon, became her protector and friend, in a storyline that kind of reminds me of The Road, which I know the crew pitched to the network as The Road, which if you don't know anything about the show, it's the saddest, most graphic apocalypse book ever. Like, I had to read that in high school. It was AP grammar, just why assign that to high schoolers? Couldn't we read something age-appropriate like Titus Andronicus? But if you don't know, The Road is a post-apocalyptic novel about a boy and a dad surviving during the end of the world. And it's not one of those doomsday stories where there's a light at the end of the tunnel like in Children of Man. The world is dying, the people are dying, and there's cannibalism and people eating babies. And the dad is dying, but he keeps it a secret from the son until it's too late. But when he leaves the son by, dying, well, at least the son has prayers and a new family takes him in, even though he's still in the apocalypse and there's no idea if he's actually gonna live to be an adult or not. Simon and Marcy feels like a kid-friendly version of this, and the only reason Simon and Marcy survived was because they're both supernatural. Simon has the crown and Marcy is part demon.
I like the book much better.
Really, Simon? Really? At least the movie implies life might return. Liking this, it's so adorable watching the two. Simon might not be perfect, but he is a pretty good caregiver to Marcy. He can always make her laugh, and he does try his hardest to keep her spirits up, even if there's the little matter of the crown. The pair hear a rustling, and Simon realizes he'll have to put the crown on again to protect Marcy, which he obviously isn't keen about because she knows how he goes. But he has to, and so he transforms. In truth, the pair weren't being chased by a monster or, say, some human hunters, just a normal deer. How evil. How dare that deer terrify a 47-year-old man and a 7-year-old girl.
You will no longer terrify a 47-year-old man and a 7-year-old girl!
Okay, I actually do like this line. It always makes me giggle, but speaking of, deer are terrible for cars. They're actually pretty deadly animals, and they have ticks. And Alistair is a deer, so run, Marcy, run! You don't take crap from other demons! Simon stops the deer, but he starts to act weird again. He nearly kills it, and he doesn't recognize Marcy as Marcy, just Gunther.
Not now, Gunther. I'm doing big people things. I play in the snow, build me a snowman.
She is able to save it by hitting Simon with a snowball.
And you started to hover in the air.
Oh, yeah? Did I look pretty fly?
I don't know if I'm allowed to laugh at that or not. Simon realizes he scared Marcy when he didn't mean to, and Marcy makes him promise not to put the crown back on again.
Simon, promise me you won't put it on again.
Okay, I promise.
Oh yeah, BTW, he is totally gonna break that promise, sweetheart. And by doing so, he will also break your heart. At night, the pair have dinner via devouring the deer. Oh my god, I just got that.
What is that thing?
It's a deer.
Wait a second, is this based on that baby they left out of the movie? Don't Google it. And Simon entertains Marcy via reenacting Cheers and singing the theme song, which will become an important motif. Which now that I've watched a bit of Cheers and Frasier, this is even sadder for me. What the hell, Simon? But why pick Cheers? Well, I know that originally they wanted the song from Mr. Belvedere, which I know eventually they were able to do in Stakes, but I think Cheers fits a lot more in this scenario. Cheers is nostalgic for one, whereas Mr. Belvedere it's not as remembered, and it's a show arguably before Marcy's time. It's a bit more mature, whereas Mr. Belvedere, I feel like she would probably have seen at least one episode. It kind of reminds me, you remember Mr. Butler from SU? Was that supposed to be a reference? Heck, Cheers and Mr. Belvedere are before my time. Cheers only gets good for me when Frasier shows up, but it's about a bunch of people who have nowhere else to go and presumably terrible lives outside of the bar, coming together and being friends and celebrating and never feeling left out. If one of them needs something, they'll give it. At Cheers, everybody is warm and kind and welcome, and it's a very feel-good show. Not feel-good like Full House. Think more like The Big Bang Theory if it wasn't written by a guy who never met a nerd, or only heard about nerds through legends. They'll constantly add or recycle characters, but it's never really all that dull for me. Point is, this fits for me and I'm glad they included it, even if I wasn't the biggest fan of Cheers until I started college. And even nowadays, I'm more of a Frasier fan because he's more relatable when you do VO work and you're an extremely minor celebrity who still lives with your parents. Just my point is, I like the song, and thank you Simon and Marcy for getting me to go to the actual Cheers in Boston, so thank you. However, Marcy starts coughing and Simon realizes she also has a fever, which honestly, I guess you can argue is because of the crown. Like we saw in the beginning, he did blow snow on her when he did that. Who's to say like this wasn't the first time? And she doesn't have a jacket? Like, oh my god. Likely due to a combo of the apocalypse, Marcy's age, and his own fragile sanity, Simon insists that Marcy needs chicken soup. That's why I brought up age.
I mean, don't freak out or anything, but we need to get you some chicken soup.
I mean, soup does help if you're sick, it's just not a cure-all. What Marcy really needs is, like, what would you give a kid? And the whole time they're journeying, Simon tries his hardest to keep her spirits up. When they make it to a town, they find what I'm gonna call a goo monster. Obviously, they're implied to be the town's citizens, mutated by the nuclear blast of the Mushroom War. But goo monsters, it works better for me, okay? Simon is once again tempted to put the crown on if it means saving Marcy. Okay, that works too. At least he wasn't vandalizing. Vandalism is wrong, Marcy.
Gross. You're gross.
You're gross, Simon.
We're both gross, darling.
Aw, I only included this because it's cute. And also apparently Tom Kenny knew Olivia Olson since she was a child. Her father is Martin Olson, aka Hunson Abadir. He wrote for Rocco and Camp Lazlo, which Tom Kenny also worked on. Which yeah, does mean that Olivia Olson is a Nepo baby, just the point is, Tom Kenny basically knew Olivia all her life and he used to babysit her. So part of me wonders if this was factored into his performance during the episode. Even if Olivia doesn't voice past Marcy, but yeah, it kind of puts a new spin on I Remember You. They get attacked by more goo monsters, like a busload, and they get cornered in an alley because of course they do. It's always the frickin' alley. Simon realizes he has to break his promise.
Our butts are grass, right?
Not yet.
Don't leave me here, Simon. I can fight.
I'm sorry, Marcy.
But he tries as hard as he can to hold it together and to hold on for dear life. He even sings the cheer song to ground himself. What the hell, man? And unlike before, he makes certain he can't hurt Marcy by locking her in a car. Stop it, dude! Oh my god, you're making me cry! As the Ice King, he saves Marcy, but once again, at the cost of chipping away at his sanity. And it's really symbolic. The snow keeps falling after he takes off the crown. The snow's still there, whereas before it dissipated. His appearance has changed as his hair is longer, his skin is different, and he loses his glasses, aka one of his last links to Simon. Maybe that's why he only sees the Ice King in a dreamlike state, because he's like nearsighted or something, and he calls Marcy Gunther.
Do you feel awesome?
Mm-hmm. I love you, Simon.
I love you, Gunter.
Which he only really calls her when he's, like, wearing the crown. But the Gum Mother gives him soup for Marcy, so yay, happy ending. Unfortunately, Simon's sanity only got worse from here, and Everything Stays shows us that the final Simon we saw in Holly Jolly Secrets, that was really his final goodbye to Marcy, but his madness made him forget about the tape.
So can I have my tape now?
What? No. This is private, silly. There you go, snug as a bug.
In truth, Marcy did not abandon him. He abandoned her, since he thought he would grow too crazy to care for her and hurt her, and sadly, he was kind of right.
Ouch!
You see, I have to go now. Goodbye, Marcy.
Wait! No! Wait!
He did go through the trouble of summoning Hunson Abadir to take care of her, who Marcy did not know at the time was her father, but yeah, losing your caregiver like that would frickin' hurt. Especially since Marcy already lost her mother and didn't realize her mother left because she was dying herself. Also, at some point after this, he hung out with vampires, or at least the Empress, considering her comment of,
"He used to have more of a silver fox thing going on with his hair and those cute glasses. He was happier then, you know, when he was serving me."
Or was this before even Marcy? Like, imagine he does this whole thing with the Empress, then he's like, screw it. Then he's like, oh, hey, a girl. Yeah, I'm guessing by the glasses comment, it was before Marcy. My bad, guys. But what if the Ice King was able to revert back to being Simon permanently? What would happen? Well, the episode Betty provides us with some answers. Firstly, there is no way to return him to normal without killing him.
I am getting on the death bus. It's my time, Betty. I don't want to be the Ice King again. It's like living with eternal diaper butt. I can't do it.
Sorry. Ice King stumbles on a group of cool wizards making a sacrifice to Bella Noche, a being of pure anti-magic. He emerges, and as the Ice King is caught in the vicinity, he reverts back to being Simon. He steals Marcy's ex-boyfriend's carpet and goes back to the Ice Kingdom and regains his glasses.
This is my busking spot.
Good for you, Simon. You know he stole Hambo, right? Extra good for you.
Ah, my research. My jacket.
Simon names his clothes too. I'm sorry, like, oh, my Jackie. Like, that made me laugh so hard. Wait, I don't do that. Why would I do that? Simon dresses back up and decides to summon Marceline in order to help him say goodbye to Betty.
Bring Hambo. Hambo is the key. Okay, Marcy? You got that?
It starts with sorry. Also, Marcy, I hate to break it to you, you don't matter this episode. You're just a plot device to get Betty back into the future, since he needs Hambo. This episode reveals Betty's fate. She did not leave Simon, she merely went into the future with him.
Simon, I know who I'm leaving you for.
Who?
You, dum-dum.
Only, do you remember how the Ice King said by a song that the magic of the crown keeps him alive? Well, with no crown, the years slowly catch up to him, and he starts dying pretty quickly.
Are you sick?
No, I'm old. crown was keeping me alive, but its magic was negated by the creature Bella Noche.
Betty wants to fix the crown and then fix him, which he's cool with since he hates being the Ice King and would rather die than continue living such a fate. Betty defeats Bella Noche, but she lets Simon go while she tries to work on a way to fix him, even if it means he has to go back to being the Ice King.
I will get you!
Hey, don't be jealous, Muscle Princess. She's gone. Kablooey.
And she has a whole off-screen adventure, becomes a wizard because she forgot her floaties, whatever that means. Now, how and why does the crown does what it does? Was that grammatically correct? Well, Evergreen fills us in, and I'll give the broad strokes version. In the before times, like before the Mushroom War, Urgence Evergreen was an ice elemental wizard who tried to avert the oncoming apocalypse by inventing a crown that could protect the wearer by having them make their deepest wish. However, he made his servant, a dinosaur named Gunther, wear it, but Gunther's deepest wish was to be like his master, aka an ice elemental who constantly berated him.
Gunther, no!
Gunther, no.
Gunther, no!
That's the wrong wish. Like I taught you. I mean, like I meant to teach you.
Meaning the dinosaurs got wiped out, but the crown lived on. And sometimes it still glitches. Anybody who wears the crown basically becomes Gunther's interpretation of Evergreen, an old-looking creep who has ice powers and has one morality pet named Gunther, like the Ice King and his penguins, or Simon and Marcy. But beyond Bella Noche, they have tried other means to quote-unquote fix Simon. Betty had her whole wizard quest where she captured Gunther in exchange for the crown and made some modifications which broke his crown explains. By this point, relations between the Ice King and most of the other characters have been cooled. Pun not intended, I'm not the former governor of California. What is with me this video? But the point is, the characters are mostly good with each other by this point, and Ice King is just another one of them. Marcy and Bubblegum are even comfortable enough to go to his house for a dinner party, although Bubblegum is more so going because of Marcy, since they're dating slash not dating slash they're good friends slash the episode reunited from SU has yet to happen so they can't kiss yet. But hey, at least she's fine being in his vicinity.
Ooh, thanks, Gunther.
He just called you Gunther.
Oh, he calls everybody Gunther.
Things seem to be going okay, for lack of a better word, but the Ice King starts acting up. They knock him out, and Bubblegum checks out his crown, discovering that something is causing him to act up. They journey into the crown via VR equipment, think parasites lost from Futurama, which coincidentally starred Finn and Jake that one time. And we discover the crown itself is kind of like a software, which I guess links up with PB's point that magic is just a science they don't really understand. They discover that much like software, the crown contains past holders, or I guess maybe copies of them in a way, kind of like cookies. Among them are Gunther, some random dude who I'm presuming is the one who sold the Ice King the crown, Santa, and Human Simon, aka the Professor, which sounds like a really cute name. Simon and Marcy are happy to reunite, especially since, as far as they know, they can now do this whenever they want.
Last time, I was so caught up in making things right with Betty that you got left out. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I get it.
She could even solve the parasites in his pelvic I can't say it, in his whatever organ. I hope his ice magic ensures afterwards that he'll be lucky to have some bones left. And I gotta say, even if he's unintentionally a bit sexist, it's pretty cute how he reacts when he properly meets Bubblegum for the first time. Like, not as the Ice King, or the Nice King, or the really nice king who happens to be single.
You must be Betty's little assistant.
Assistant? I have been my own boss my entire life. I built my own lab. I've created freaking life form.
Unless they meet in Fiona and Cake. No offense, I have yet to get to that show. I guess if this gets enough views, I might go over Betty, so then I'll start to watch the show and go from there. But the point is, in truth, the Ice King is acting up because in an effort to help, Betty sent an AI of her into the crown. But her efforts to help are simply a virus to the real Simon. And this Betty isn't voiced by Lena Dunham like she is before.
Magic Man?
Magic Woman.
I don't know if that's good or bad. AI Betty persists, and she can't be stopped by anybody but Simon, who breaks into AI Betty's software to find the real Betty by reminding her of the story of how they met, which is so cute.
Both reached for the same book in the library, and I said you should check it out first.
And when you returned it, you left a note inside because you knew I'd borrow it next?
Oh, they actually went to libraries for reasons beyond printing out documents. Simon tells Betty that as much as he wants nothing more than to be back to normal, all of her efforts to help aren't helping, and if she does truly love him, she needs to let him go. Move on, babe.
Technically, I'm a magical AI avatar derived from Betty's memories.
Close enough.
Sadly, there is another bittersweet ending to this, because Simon can never be happy since the universe has made him its personal doll. Happiness is always just out of reach for him, but he can never obtain it, much like Sisyphus. Well, they might have stopped Betty, but Marcy can't just visit him whenever she wants now. At least he has Gunther, Santa, and Betty's living, consenting head, for only a little while longer. Because come the series finale, Come Along With Me, the Ice King is no more. For background, Princess Bubblegum's uncle, Gumbald, started a war with the Candy Kingdom, and because the show was cancelled before the creators wanted it, well, he gets the Mina Loveberry treatment, where he's made out to be the series' final villain, even if he wasn't intended to be such. But because Come Along With Me is an hour long, he's way more menacing and he feels a bit more developed. Since he knows it's the end of the show, he summons all of the series' villains as part of a rogues gallery, including the Ice King, Betty, Magic Man, etc.
It's been real cool being in this rogues gallery with you.
Betty enters into a weirdo trance to summon Golb, a being of pure chaos. How do I best describe Golb? Wasted potential, a plot device albeit a cool one, or in more conventional terms, he's like ice cream and chocolate syrup.
Golb would say ice cream is without meaning. Just empty calories devoid of purpose.
Good thing he isn't here then.
Thank God I don't like chocolate syrup or most chocolates that aren't flavors, except for like brownies and the like. Golb and me have something in common. Well, that and we're agents of chaos. Like usual, the Ice King is the only one who can stop Betty and save the world. Because if Golb enters their world, well, life as they know it will end. If he stops the world and they survive, it will spark endless fan fictions.
You're trying to stop me? When I'm this close to harnessing the most powerful force in the universe and finally saving you?
Yeah, I guess.
Aw, my writer sense is tingling. Ice King does stop Betty by causing an explosion involving Masha, which swallows him, Betty, and Finn into Golb. Ew. Inside of Golb, the Ice King reverts back to Simon, because the chaos magic negates the crown, presumably without killing him, or it will eventually. Golb starts digesting them by breaking them down into their base forms, and they can't use the crown to escape, meaning they're gonna die.
Betty?
It's good to see you, Simon.
Which, no joke, I thought the show was gonna end with everybody but Marcy and BMO dying, especially considering the trailer, and I'm so glad that did not happen. Simon accepts his demise while encouraging Finn to do the same.
I always figured I'd go out saving somebody.
Hey, no one gets to choose how it happens.
Aww. However, the song outside is able to save them by making I don't know what you would call it without getting demonetized, but Simon and Finn leave while Betty stays behind and makes a new wish. Because the crown is back to its base form after all, meaning she can start wishing. It takes some decision, but eventually...
However it has to happen. I wish for the power to keep Simon safe.
Like Bobby Worse said, love is the most evil thing there is. Aww. Betty and Golb fuse together and leave to parts unknown. Simon is back, but at what cost? The Ice King is no more. But at least Simon is back, while the Ice King gets to live on is Gunther. Because Gunther wishes to be the Ice King and 4 drums. I forgot he did that.
He's a big evil alien stuck in a penguin! Say, where's Gunther? My beautiful child that I love.
Never mind. I think he just wished to be Ice King.
But why won't I get to Fiona and Cake just yet? Again, I haven't watched the show, this video is long enough, and because it's a new video, it's giving me like major anxiety. But this is the Ice King, I don't know what else to say, so bye.